So hello, today I'm at All Saints Church in Purleigh in Essex, and I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the village and the history of the church. So starting off, we're on a hill. You can see that the village is very small, and you have the centrally located pub, the Bell, which looks very inviting. And Purleigh's in Essex, like I said. It's 3.5 miles from Malden, and the place name was first attested in the charter of 998 as Purleigh. Now in 1086 the name Purleigh it had the meaning of clearing. And in the Norman conquest, the Earl of Purleigh, who was Ulstice, he owned the manor here. Now that same manor by the 15th century was owned by Hugh Denys, who was the groom of the stall to Henry VII. Now the groom of the stall, which carried on to Henry VIII, was a very important role. Although it doesn't sound like it, it gave great insight to the king. Now Lawrence Washington was rector here from 1632 to 1643. Now we're approaching the east side, and what you see is these huge trees, giant redwood trees, and there's another one up there as well. Now also in this cemetery there is a man called Robert Francis, and he was famous for being a translator of German into English or English into German. And there's also a connection with this church. The King James Bible was, when it's first formulated, there was a connection to somebody from here. I do apologise, I haven't got the information on that. So now we are facing, which is basically a 14th century church, the parish church of Purleigh. And we've got so just to get the idea of what we're looking at, we've got the chancel there, the nave, the south aisle and the west tower. Most of the church is built from ragstone rubble and flint, and there's also 14th century bricks that are incorporated. I believe down there there's possibly some Roman tiles with bricks, some sort of doorway there. As you come in towards the south porch, you are met with a avenue of yew trees or yew bushes. And you can see that most of the materials would be from fields around. We go over to the west tower. The west tower is 14th century. It's 12.5 feet square, and it looks like it would have been built in the time of the 100 Years' War, as I believe these flints were brought over from France. These black flints are quite distinctive. Now this porch, the south porch, is Tudor. It's got a 16th century timber work beams in this roof, which are all original, and we're going to go in, and I'm very excited about this. So we unlock this latch. It's not a nice wooden gate, and if you look above you can see the original timber work from the Tudor period. It gives you an idea of the windows here and seats. The doorway, well, the actual door is 14th century, so it's original. This church was basically rebuilt around that period, and you can see just about make out the face there. Before this porch was built, this would have been weathered. And I did notice graffiti there on the jambs, and it got a really nice sign: please turn small handle to left. Now it's really windy, so everything seems to be creaking and knocking. Looks like the door has been faced around, I guess, in Victorian period. I did notice up the top there a little cherub. So I'm going to put down my rucksack so I can move a bit more freely. Okay, so this is the south aisle. It's 9 feet wide and 14th century. And if we start on the window over here, we have a John Wycliffe, who was a scholar and a rector here from 1890 to 1924, and he's responsible for restoration of this church, so he had a lot to do with it. And we've got John Keeb. I'm not sure if I've got that right, actually. Period costume doesn't look right, but anyway, it's a nice window. And then they have a prayer for peace table. I did notice this really nicely made World War II remembrance book. There'll be the wall thing there for mass, I guess. Now here we have a medieval window, I guess. It's I read that it was 14th century glass, so that glass has been reinstated in this, which is incredible. Let's see if I can get it there. Yeah, it's quite incredible. Now we've got a organ here. There's a visitor's book here that you can fill in here. And then we have an organ. Now we're entering the nave, and you've got various coats of arms, royal coats of arms up there. Fantastic oil painting. I Don't know who that is. And we're going to look down towards the chancel. The ceiling looks like it's been renovated fairly recently. In oak. And then we make our way over to the north aisle, and again we have another fantastic oil painting. And you can actually see, if you look down, you can see how crooked the columns, the window are. It's just amazing how the building settles down over the centuries. This is 8 feet wide, and again 14th century in construction. You can see the fairly recent renovations that have taken place. Mother Mary. And lovely carved banisters there, going up to the pulpit. Look at the detail in that. Great. Now we're going to enter the chancel, which again is 14th century. And you can see maybe more clearly here the ceiling. And we pass some floor stones. This one is fairly old, 1624. Elizabeth Byatt, wife of John Byatt, and Roger Hayne. It's 1817, so it's 19th century. This one was a rector from the 19th century as well. Now we're in the high altar area. It's a beautiful window there. Guessing Victorian period. And these seats, when I did my research, are for the priest and the assistants to sit in. And then we have the original, I guess it'll be seen where the vessels could be washed. And the holy water would, as I understand it, would be drained directly to the soil. And a 1599 memorial of some sort there. So this church is famous for a connection with Lawrence Washington of America. Well, he's English, but he was great-grandfather to George Washington. So I have a little bit of information that I took down. So Lawrence Washington was rector at Purleigh, which is here, and he was rector for 12 years. He was married to Amphias Twigden, and Amphias, she lived a further 3 years after his death, and she was buried in Hertfordshire. But they were lucky to, well, what happened was Lawrence Washington, it looks like, in the English Civil War, he was set up with being accused of something to do with drinking alcohol, which would be a no-no as a rector. Not sure if it's connected to this pub here. Graffiti there. So he was moved to another parish, and the poor man died in poverty. They did have 6 children between them, and 3 of them went on to go to America. As I understand, it became very successful. Now, talking of George Washington, there are some items here from the connection there. So if we come over to, if I squeeze past the font, we have a list of the rectors and patrons of Purleigh, starting with William de Purleigh, 1220. It goes all the way down. This is quite typical of an English church, that they can trace the pedigree of all the priests. We have another window. Again, I don't know the history, but so here we have George Washington himself. If I go a bit closer, you can see that. Presented to Purleigh Church by the Providence Washington Insurance Company through the good office of Miss A. Livesey of Compton, RI, May 7th, 1929. Now that might be connected to the memorial window, which is in Malden, in All Saints Church, which I believe was 1928, so it might be a connection. This lady here is Mary Ball Washington, and she is mother of George Washington. There's some writing there. And there's some pictures there, which I found quite interesting, of Lawrence Washington and his wife. They look quite young there. And then on this side we have a descendant of George Washington and Winston Spencer Churchill. It's quite interesting. And then also we have the descendant of George Washington from King John and 9 Magna Carta barons. So it's a lot to take on board. I should take you outside just to walk around the rest of the church. So I should put my rucksack back on. Just bear with me a second. Okay, and we're off. I found this column, just before we go, I found this column very interesting. Can you see how it's leaning? So you can see the base of the column. It's kicking out a bit. Somehow these buildings, they seem to just go with it. Quite incredible, really. And you consider the age. I guess they call it settlement, right. So we close up this gate. got an unusual pattern of this flint. You can see the face there, carving. And I just noticed that it's probably a mass dial of some sort. You see that? They're normally on the south facing side. And across the road, I'm going up and down the hills here, we have part of the original, oh, maybe part of the new cemetery, I'm guessing. You can see the village there now. So it goes off down the hill. Yeah, this is literally right on top of the hill. So all of the historical parts of history would have been connected to the building on top of this hill. So who knows what was here before. So we go to the side of this redwood. You can see just how windy it is. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you very much.